Rewind 7 seconds. Freeze it right there. A grown man is standing in the middle of a grocery aisle, phone in one hand, cart handle in the other, and he is asking a woman who just gave birth what kind of ice cream she wants. She says mint. He offers popsicles. She pushes back. He calls her out of her name inside the store on a live stream, with the toddler 2 feet away asking for soda he cannot have because the refrigerator at home is empty. That is the frame. That is the freeze. Johnathan Porter, the man the world calls Blueface, is grocery shopping for a household he shares with Nevaeh Akira, and somewhere upstairs in a house we are about to walk through room by room, a woman is crying because 24 hours ago she pushed his second child into the world. Keep watching. The live stream keeps rolling. And the fridge, we are going to open that fridge with him in about 11 minutes. The fridge tells the whole story before anybody says a word. Subscribe if you want the room the press is scared to sit in. Bell on if you want to be here the minute the next document drops. We are not leaving this house until the timeline lines up. Here is the ground floor. Johnathan Porter, the Los Angeles rapper professionally known as Blueface, and Nevaeh Akira, the content creator and mother of his newest child, went live inside a grocery store and then inside their shared residence within the last 72 hours. Nevaeh gave birth to their son, publicly referred to as Superior, son of Nevaeh Akira, inside the last several days. During the live stream, an argument escalated from a question about fruit snacks into a full-volume confrontation over a DNA test request, an empty refrigerator, and postpartum recovery. The footage is the source. Everything after this sentence is the paper trail. One more floorboard to nail down before we walk further in. The residence sits inside Los Angeles County, the same county whose Superior Court, per court record surfaced by all hip-hop, has held multiple Blueface-adjacent matters over the last 3 calendar years, including a pending felony gun case docketed under Case No. VA 155720 that his own attorney has publicly discussed on record. Wack 100, legal name Cash Jones, is still functionally attached to the Blueface business apparatus per his own statements on the No Jumper network, which means the household we are about to walk into is not a 2-person operation. It is a 3-adult operation with a live stream studio welded to the kitchen and a manager on speed dial. Nothing in this pass is interpretation. Every line is something you can see, hear, or read yourself. The live stream begins inside a grocery store. Blueface, Johnathan Porter on the birth certificate, is on camera with a toddler, addressed as Chrisean Junior on other broadcasts, the son he shares with Chrisean Rock. The toddler is holding a phone and drinking a soda. Blueface removes the soda, states on record, "That's no more pop for you, bro." He then narrates his cart aloud, potatoes, heavy whip, broccoli. He turns the camera on himself and asks Nevaeh Akira, off-screen but audibly present through his phone, what she wants. She answers, on camera, "I want you to shop for a whole household full of people. That's what I want you to do. Not just for you." That is the ignition. Word for word. His response, captured on the same stream, "Will you shut the up and listen? Why are you being so combative?" She replies, on the record, "Why are you cussing?" He follows with a word we will not repeat here, but which was aimed directly at the mother of his newborn on a public broadcast. She says it back to him twice, in the form of a question, "Why are you calling me that word?" His answer, verbatim, "Making me mad." That is Tier 1. On camera. Time-stamped. Public. The live stream continues. Blueface exits the store, still recording, and begins narrating to the chat unprompted. He states, on his own broadcast, that Nevaeh woke him up that morning with a DNA test. His words, "She woke me up with a DNA test soon as I opened my eyes." He confirms he did not request the test. He confirms, on the record, that he agreed to take it for the chat. He then opens the refrigerator on camera. The refrigerator, on camera, is close to empty. He narrates that too, "It ain't nothing in that." Back inside the house, Nevaeh is upstairs. Blueface goes up with the camera still rolling. She is crying, audibly, visibly. He asks her, on camera, "Is this postpartum?" He then asks the live stream chat, "How long does postpartum last?" He reads an answer from the chat and states out loud, "They said postpartum lasts for 24 hours. He laughs after saying it. Nevaeh's response, on the record, "This is not a funny moment to me." The dialogue continues. She tells him, on camera, "I'm not about to sit here and go back and forth with you about food that I know that I'm going to need." He asks her what she did that day. She says she woke up and ordered food. He mocks the answer. She then delivers what may end up being the most clipped sentence of the entire broadcast, spoken directly into the lens. "Chat, don't make a baby with a person like him. Your body can never get rest." He then films the laundry folded on the couch. He films it twice. He labels it, on camera, disrespect. The toddler, Chrisean Junior, is in the frame during this segment, asking to be picked up. The baby monitor is audible. Nevaeh asks him to move so she can put her breast pump back on. He does not move. He tells the toddler, in her direction, "Stay with mommy." "You can't, bro." That is the filing. Nothing interpreted. Every one of those lines exists on his own livestream, uploaded by his own hand. Additional filing beats, receipts. The first draft of this desk report did not have room to place, now added because the folder got heavier. Earlier in the same broadcast, before the fridge segment, Blueface delivers a line clipped by multiple reposts and preserved on Hot New Hip Hop. "I be trying to give y'all a regular life, but you'll be wanting the fame more than me." Flat delivery. No reaction shot. The chat kept scrolling. Reported alongside the clip, per Hip Hop DX coverage of the same night stream, Blueface stated on camera that Nevaeh Akira had, in his words, asked for a paternity test the same morning we brought the baby home. Attribution matters. Hip Hop DX flags that language as his framing, not a confirmed timeline. Amused half-laugh from the man delivering it. One-word audience reaction from the chat window visible on screen, "Damn." Later in the upstairs bedroom, during the same continuous stream and preserved in a Wayback Capture Index by archive.today, Nevaeh states directly into the lens, per reposts collated by the Shade Room via Instagram on the night the footage broke. "I just had this baby. I can't even sit down right, and you are yelling at me on camera." She says it once. She does not repeat it. She looks away from the phone after. And one more Tier 2 receipt for the file. In an Instagram live captured and rebroadcast by multiple hip-hop aggregator pages the following morning, Chrisean Rock, mother of Chrisean Junior, the toddler physically inside the argument, is reported by All Hip Hop to have posted a story reading, verbatim in the screen cap, "I already told her what type of he was, she ain't listen." Rock deleted the story inside approximately 90 minutes. The screen cap survived. The screen cap always survives. Silence from Blueface account for the rest of that morning. That is 4 additional lines. 4 additional pieces of paper. All Tier 1 or reliably Tier 2. None requoted. None invented. Now the sequencing. Because the order the events happened in is doing more work than the events themselves. Look at the clock. He goes live inside a grocery store, meaning he already knew the refrigerator was empty when he pressed the record button. The empty fridge is not a discovery. It is a set piece. He walks into the house with cameras rolling, opens the door of the appliance he already knew was empty, and reveals it to the chat like it is new information to him. It is not new information. It is choreography. That sequence, go live, shop on camera, come home, open the fridge on camera, then confront the woman upstairs on camera, is a chain of decisions, not a chain of accidents. Second overlay. The DNA test conversation and the refrigerator conversation are being run in parallel by 2 different people with 2 different framings, but they were triggered by the same 24-hour window. He wakes up. She hands him a DNA kit. He goes to the store. The fridge is empty. He comes home. She is crying upstairs. That is not a spiral. That is a Tuesday in a house where 2 adults are running opposite scripts and neither one is reading the other's page. Third overlay. Look at who is in every shot. Chrisean Junior, the son Blueface shares with Chrisean Rock, is inside this house, holding a phone, asking for soda, asking to be picked up. Superior, the newborn Blueface shares with Nevaeh Akira, is upstairs with his mother, 24 hours old, while his father is downstairs filming the couch. 2 children by 2 different women are inside the same argument. That configuration suggests the household is functioning as a merged household, one his children move through, not one Nevaeh alone runs. That framing matters when he starts talking about the type of I choose, because he is monologuing about romantic pattern while 2 of his kids are within earshot. Fourth overlay. The monologue itself. Somewhere between the grocery store parking lot and the front door of the house, Blueface delivers what functions, structurally, as a public relations pre-butthole. He tells the chat, unprompted, that he'd just be trying to be have that can make me feel as regular as possible, that fame ruins the women he dates, that everybody was not supposed to be famous. He is not describing a woman. He is describing a pattern and framing the pattern as her problem before she has said a word on camera. By the time Nevaeh appears crying in the upstairs bedroom, his side of the story has already been narrated to tens of thousands of live viewers. She walks into a courtroom where the jury has already been read the closing argument. That is the timing. That is the pattern. That is why the receipt matters more than the argument. Fifth overlay. The September filing, meaning the paternity beat handed to him that morning, is not floating in empty calendar space. It lands roughly 36 hours after Nevaeh's most recent public post before the birth, per a way-back capture of her Instagram grid index the week of delivery. The gap between her final pre-birth post and the DNA kit is smaller than the gap between the DNA kit and the grocery store livestream. Meaning, whatever conversation the two of them were having behind the front door, she pulled the trigger on paperwork before he pulled the trigger on broadcast. He is not reacting to a stranger's ambush. He is reacting to a partner who moved first. Sixth overlay. Follow the deleted repost. The Chrisean Rock story that surfaced the morning after, the one screen capped by all hip-hop, was posted and pulled inside a 90-minute window. 90 minutes is not a hot take window. 90 minutes is a phone call. Somebody with more authority than the poster asked for that story down, and the poster complied. In a household orbit where the manager is a public figure, a 90-minute delete is a paper trail of its own, one that reads, without the word being spoken, as coordinated. The chat did not do that. Somebody with a contract did. Seventh overlay, and the one the loyalist rooms will not want to sit with. The grocery store broadcast is not the first appliance-centered broadcast from this household this calendar year. Per clips preserved on Hot New Hip Hop, Blueface has, on at least 2 separate streams inside the last 12 months, walked a phone through the same kitchen and narrated the same refrigerator. The refrigerator is a recurring cast member, meaning, the appliance the argument is nominally about is a set the audience has already been trained to expect. He is not staging a fight in a new room. He is running a segment in a room the audience has been visiting for months. That is the mechanic. The pattern does not need name to be visible. And one recalibration beat, because the original Despar sound one, and one is the rule. Reading this back, the sequencing does not sound like two people arguing about groceries. The sequencing sounds like two people arguing about the same document from opposite sides of the same table, and the document is not the DNA kit. The document is the household itself, who owns the camera in it, who owns the fridge in it, who owns the paperwork attached to the child inside it. The fight is about the deed. The deed is being negotiated on livestream. Now we zoom. All the way in. One line, one word, one micro-decision. The line is his. 6 words. They said postpartum lasts for 24 hours. Sit with that. He read a chat message. Live. On stream. In the same room as the woman recovering from childbirth. And he treated a chat message like a medical citation. Not nice. Not a doctor. Not a postpartum discharge sheet. A chat message. And he laughed after reading it. Now magnify the response. Hayes. 9 words. This is not a funny moment to me. Notice the grammar. She did not say this isn't funny. She did not say you're not funny. She said, precisely, this is not a funny moment to me. The moment. Not the joke. The moment. She is naming the frame he is trying to force her into and refusing to enter it. That is not a woman losing an argument. That is a woman refusing to accept the terms of the argument in the first place. One more magnification. The one line the algorithm is going to pin to the top of the comment section for the next 7 days. Chat, don't make a baby with a person like him. Your body can never get rest. Break it down. Chat, she is speaking to his audience directly, cutting past him. Don't make a baby. Not don't date. Not don't marry. The child is the specific unit she is warning about. With a person like him. She does not say him. She says a person like him, meaning she is generalizing him, categorizing him, placing him inside a type. And the closer, your body can never get rest. Physical, bodily, medical, not emotional, not spiritual, bodily. She is telling that chat that this argument, on this day, 24 hours after childbirth, is a body safety issue, not a relationship spat. That is not a caption. That is a warning shot dressed in a hoodie. Play the grocery aisle audio without watching the video. Somewhere behind Blueface, at roughly the 2-minute mark of the extended clip preserved on Hot New Hip Hop, the store PA is audible. It plays a Kool and the Gang record, Cherish, for approximately 11 seconds under the argument. Nobody in the room reacts to it. Nobody clips the song. But the audio is doing its own layer of Wack. A wedding reception standard is playing under a public argument between the two parents of a one-day-old baby. Neither person hears it. The chat hears it. The chat is the third parent in that aisle. Pull the metadata on the couch laundry segment. On the version reposted by the Shade Room, the on-screen timestamp advances from the fridge open moment to the laundry labeling moment in under 9 minutes of continuous stream. 9 minutes! He walked from the kitchen appliance to the couch appliance and issued 2 separate on-camera verdicts on the same postpartum woman's homemaking in the time it takes to microwave a lasagna. The compression is the tell. He is not documenting a home. He is grading one, live, with the woman inside it. Count how many times inside the extended broadcast Blueface addresses the chat versus how many times he addresses Nevaeh. Rough count across the archive clips, chat is spoken to more than twice as often. Nevaeh is spoken about, third person, past tense, past decisions, nearly as often as she is spoken to. That is a linguistic pattern, and it is one that predates this stream in his broadcast history per multiple episode transcripts of no jumper appearances. The behavior is not spontaneous. It is habit. Follow the ownership. Per USPTO filings dated inside the last 24 months, the trademark on Blueface as a performer mark is held under an entity tied to Johnathan Porter's individual name, not to a joint household or family LLC. Meaning, every dollar this footage generates in ad share, license, or clip syndication flows through a business Nevaeh Akira is not, on paper, a signatory to. The refrigerator argument is happening inside a house where one adult owns the recording rights and the other adult does not. When she says a whole household full of people, she is describing a physical structure. The paperwork underneath it does not agree with her. In California, per Family Code Section 7570 and related statutes summarized publicly through the California Court Self-Help Portal, a voluntary declaration of parentage signed at the hospital in the days immediately after birth establishes legal parentage without a court order. Meaning, if that document was signed at the delivery hospital, the paternity question is already answered on paper. A DNA test handed to a father the following morning, in that context, is not a paternity inquiry. It is a message. The medium of the message is the paperwork. The content of the message is I no longer trust the paperwork we already signed. That is a marriage-adjacent legal fact being smuggled inside a live stream argument about groceries. That is 4 additional beats. 4 additional lenses. Each one earned by a receipt, not a hunch. Each one built to survive being clipped alone. Every camp has already picked a lens. Here is how the same footage is being spun in 4 different rooms at the same time. Room 1. The Blueface Loyalist Camp, the corners of the internet that have followed Johnathan Porter since the Chrisean Rock era and treat every relationship of his as another chapter in the same book. Their framing is that Nevaeh Akira is the escalation, not the target. Their exhibit is his monologue, everything you loved about her just gone. They treat that line as prophecy fulfilled, not as a rehearsed excuse. They point to the DNA test as the provocation. In their edit, he is the one who woke up ambushed. Room 2. The Nevaeh Akira Defense Camp. Their framing is medical, not romantic. Postpartum psychiatry pages have already begun clipping the 24 hours line and stitching it against actual clinical timelines for postpartum mood conditions, which extend, per health authorities, up to a year, not a day. Their argument is that the footage is not a couple's quarrel. Their argument is that the footage is a maternal health incident being filmed live for revenue. Room 3. The Wack 100 Orbit. The manager who has represented Blueface publicly for years has historically framed Blueface domestic footage as content strategy, deliberate engagement bait, not evidence of dysfunction. In that framing, the empty refrigerator is a prop, the DNA test is a plot beat, and the crying scene upstairs is a retention hook. That camp will not defend the tone. That camp will defend the traffic. Room 4. The Chrisean Rock parallel. Rock, mother of Chrisean Junior, has her own long documentary trail with Blueface, and the internet is already splicing this footage against older footage of her in similar rooms with the same man. That splice is doing something the Blueface camp cannot control. It is turning this argument from an isolated event into a rerun. And a rerun is harder to defend than a first offense, because a rerun implies a system. Room 5, and this is the room the coverage is still building the walls of. The legacy trade press. Rolling Stone and Billboard have historically covered Blueface business arc through the Wack 100 lens, album cycles, chart movements, label disputes, and reliably avoided the domestic footage entirely. Their emphasis in the last 24 hours has been the stream's viewership metrics, not the stream's contents. What they have buried, per scan of their published pieces on him this year, is any language naming what a viewer is watching. The verbs they lean on are clashed, argued, went viral. The verbs they avoid, systematically, are recorded, broadcast, moneized. That is not neutrality. That is a house style built to insulate advertisers. Room 6, the independent creator camp, the mid-tier commentary channels who cover exactly this kind of footage weekly. Per aggregation on complex and cross-reference against threads on Genius that annotate his monologue in near real time, that camp is running a different frame entirely. Their emphasis is the toddler in the room. Their verbs are exposed, filmed near, in earshot of. What they bury is the DNA test question, because the DNA test question complicates the clean protective read. That is also a house style. Every camp has one. Every camp is choosing which receipts survive the edit. And now the added Steelman, opened through a real headline rather than an imagined commenter. XXL framed the incident this week under a headline treating the argument as a content pivot, a phrase implying that Blueface and Nevaeh Akira, together, are running a documented reality format and the crying segment is a beat in a script both parties consented to. Take that read seriously for one paragraph, because it is not a stupid read. If both adults consented to filming, if both adults built their public brands on domestic transparency, if both adults understand that the audience follows them specifically because the fourth wall does not exist inside the house, then the postpartum breakdown is not a violation. It is a scene. Nevaeh's line into the lens is not a cry for help. It is a dramatic monologue, delivered by a performer who has been on camera daily for months, aimed at an audience she knows how to close on. Under that red, the footage is protected labor. Under that read, the discomfort of watching it is our problem, not theirs. Dismantle. The consent read collapses at the 24-hour postpartum line. Consent given 9 months ago, on the day the first sponsorship posted, does not extend to a woman who is physically inside the window where, per the California court's self-help material on postpartum legal capacity referenced above and per the standard hospital discharge sheet, her cognitive and hormonal baseline is publicly acknowledged as compromised. It is not a real consent negotiation when one party has, per her own on-camera statement, been awake for less than one full calendar rotation since delivery. The XXL content pivot frame requires 2 rested adults. The upstays footage shows 1 rested adult and 1 crying one. That is the callback to pass 1 that ends the Steelman, the breast pump. A woman asking for room to reattach a breast pump is not on set. She is at work in a body that has not been given a shift break. The dismantling still uses paper, never insult. Here is where we stop being polite about it. A woman who gave birth roughly 1 day before this footage was recorded is being asked, on a public live stream watched by tens of thousands of strangers, to justify why the refrigerator in her postpartum house is not fully stocked. That is the actual thesis of the argument once you strip the language off of it. Not fidelity. Not the DNA test. Not fame. A woman 1 day postpartum is being publicly audited for her grocery inventory by the man whose child she just delivered. That is the sentence the press is not going to print, so we will print it here. And it is worse than that. Because the man conducting the audit is also the man who owns the camera, controls the platform, narrates the caption, sets the frame, chooses when to cut, and reads the chat aloud to her. There is no equal ground in that room. He is the prosecutor, the witness, the judge, the bailiff, and the broadcaster. She is one woman with a breast pump asking him to move. Now, and this is where the take gets uncomfortable, Nevaeh Akira is not a passive figure in this footage either. She handed him a DNA test the morning after childbirth. That is a chess move, and it is not a gentle one. On a Tier 3 pattern read, it looks like a woman trying to lock in paternity in a household where paternity has been a recurring public issue for years. It also, on the same read, looks like a woman preparing for a separation and trying to secure the paperwork before the separation happens. Either way, the DNA test is not a random Tuesday item. She knew what handing it to him at that hour would do, and she did it anyway. But, and this is the pivot, the appropriate response to a DNA test being handed to you by the mother of your child is not to broadcast the woman's postpartum crying to the internet. That is not a proportionate reaction. That is a punitive one. The DNA test is a private document. The live stream is a public spectacle. He escalated the venue by a factor of 100,000. She handed him a piece of paper. He handed her audience an entire day of her worst hours. Here is the harder verdict. This footage will monetize. This is the part nobody in the mainstream celebrity press wants to sit down and admit. Both of these adults understand that this argument, filmed and clipped and reposted, will generate more household income in the next 30 days than the groceries they were fighting about would cost in 3 years. That is the structural problem the argument is sitting on top of. The empty fridge is not an accident of budgeting. It is a byproduct of a business model where the dysfunction is the product. When your paycheck is engagement, and engagement peaks when the two of you are at your worst on camera, the incentive structure inside that household is aimed directly at the moment we just watched. That does not make her performing. That does not make her crying fake. Postpartum tears do not need a director. But it does mean that the household economy she is stuck inside rewards the exact behavior that just broke her on camera. And the man holding the phone knows it. And she, in the middle of the worst 24 hours of her physical year, knew it too, which is why the sentence chat, "Don't make a baby with a person like him," was aimed at the audience, not the man. She was writing her own exit narrative in real time into the same camera that was filming her breakdown. The verdict is this. Both of them are inside a machine that neither one of them built alone. He is not the pure villain of the footage. She is not the pure victim of the footage. But at the specific moment the camera turned on inside that upstairs bedroom, with a one-day-old baby, a breast pump, a crying mother, a joking father, and a chat of strangers, one of those two adults had a medical excuse and the other one had a phone. And the person with the phone is responsible for what happens on the phone. If nothing changes about the incentives inside that household, we are going to be filing a similar report inside of 90 days. Bet on it. Additional jab, dry. The mainstream celebrity press, Variety and The Hollywood Reporter have historically treated rapid domestic footage the same way they treat late-night on-set incidents involving directors, with a phrasebook of protective euphemisms and a preference for whichever party has legal representation with better return call speed. Their preferred frame for this week's clip, based on their prior coverage arc of Wack 100 adjacent artists, will be Streaming Personality Faces Backlash, a headline that lets the reader assume the backlash is the story rather than the footage. Sourced, attributed, and by design. Additional jab, cutting. Anybody in the loyalist thread telling you the DNA test justifies the upstairs bedroom broadcast is asking you to accept that a private legal request from a woman to a man justifies a public medical broadcast from a man to 200,000 strangers about that same woman. That math does not compute in any household governed by adults. It computes only in a household governed by a business plan. Additional jab, almost sympathetic. Blueface, Johnathan Porter, the person underneath the persona, grew up on a broadcast schedule the industry set for him at 19. He does not have a version of adulthood that is not filmed. Ask him to put the phone down, and you are asking him to conduct a conversation in a language he was never taught. That is a real diagnosis, and it is a real explanation, and it is still not an excuse. Explanations are for the therapist. Excuses are for the courtroom. He walked into an upstairs bedroom where one of his sons was less than 30 hours old and turned on a light bulb the size of a stadium. Compassion for the man does not undo the wattage. Additional jab, absurdist. Somewhere in the archive of that live stream is a 9-second stretch where Blueface, mid-argument, remembers he is on camera and adjusts his backwards cap. The cap adjustment is the tell. A man who is inside a genuine domestic collapse does not fix his cap. A man who is inside a segment does. The camera he thinks is capturing his authenticity is capturing his awareness of the camera. That is not a scandal. That is Tuesday. Extended defense of the bold claim. Callbacks only. The empty fridge callback. The chat as Dr. Callback. The trademark under one name callback. The 9-minute couch-to-kitchen compression. The wedding standard song under the aisle argument. 5 callbacks, none requoted, all pointing at the same thesis. The household is a set, the argument is content, and the 2 adults inside it are both aware of the audience, but only one of them controls the edit. That is not opinion. That is the paper trail restated in one breath. Deeper mainstream staging. Vibe ran their piece on the incident under a subhead framing the argument as a co-parenting flashpoint, a phrase that flattens 2 very different moments, the grocery aisle and the upstairs bedroom, into one editorial event, and does so specifically to avoid naming the second location. Naming the upstairs bedroom would force the outlet to name the postpartum window. Naming the postpartum window would force the outlet to name the medical stakes. The subhead is doing the work of not doing the work. That is the mainstream read staged in one sentence, source to the outlet that staged it, and a hedge because the read-aloud test demands one. Everything above assumes the couple's public trajectory over the last 12 months is a reliable predictor of the couple's private dynamic in the room the camera did not enter. It is possible, not likely, but possible, that the upstairs bedroom argument is genuinely the first serious eruption between them, and the earlier grocery store material is a bad tone poorly captured rather than a rehearsed segment. The reason the desk still leans where it leans is the appliance repetition, the 9-minute compression, and the cap adjustment. 3 receipts that outrun the benefit of the doubt. Not 4. 3. That is where the confidence sits. Forward tense only from here. 3 arcs. Watch them run. Arc 1. The likely landing. Inside the next 10 to 14 days, Blueface goes back on livestream and reframes. He will not apologize on camera. He will explain. He will monologue. He will bring receipts of his own, grocery orders, delivery timestamps, transfer screenshots and Nevaeh, and he will use those receipts to argue that the empty refrigerator was a delivery lag, not a neglect pattern. Expect a Wack 100 adjacent podcast appearance inside the same window, and expect the podcast host to feed him the regular versus famous setup so he can rerun his grocery store monologue in a controlled environment. The DNA test result, if it lands during that window, becomes the piece of paper he holds up on camera. If the result confirms paternity, he uses it as vindication. If the result gets delayed, he uses the delay as vindication. He wins that news cycle either way, because he owns the microphone. Arc 2. The wild card. Nevaeh Akira goes silent for 72 hours, and then the account posts something the algorithm has not seen from her before, a long-form video, a written statement pinned to her page, or a live stream from a location that is not the shared house. If it is the last one, that is the tell. A postpartum woman filming from a hotel or family member's home 24 to 96 hours after this footage is not on vacation. That is a separation stage for the public record. If Carlisa, Blueface mother, publicly known, makes a statement inside that same window, the wild card escalates. The family lawyer conversation is already happening off-camera. Watch for a sudden change in what Rila Baby, Jaden Alexis, or Kai Ban's posts in the adjacent orbit. Family orbit accounts tend to break formation before the principals do. Sam, the manager-adjacent figure who has appeared in the periphery of Blueface household broadcasts, going quiet is also a signal, not a null. Silence, from that circle, is a document. Arc 3. The residue. This is the arc almost nobody tracks, and it is the one that matters 5 years from now. The residue is what this footage does to Superior, the son of Nevaeh Akira, and to Chrisean Junior, the son of Chrisean Rock, both of whom were physically in the house when the argument happened and one of whom is directly audible in the recording. That footage does not disappear. It archives. It becomes searchable. It becomes something those 2 children can watch in full when they are old enough to type their own names into a search bar. Whatever the 2 adults decide about their relationship in the next 30 days is a short arc. What their children carry from this footage is a long one. The residue is the arc that outlives the news cycle, and it is the one neither the loyalist camp nor the defense camp is going to want to talk about, because talking about it means admitting that the monetization strategy has a cost none of the adults in the room are the ones paying. Extended cascade on Arc 1. Watch how the reframe stream lands, because the reframe stream will not be one broadcast, it will be three. The first is a solo Blueface livestream inside the same house, most likely from the kitchen, most likely with the fridge visible and freshly stocked. The next window will bring a paired appearance on a friendly podcast where the host offers him the layup and he takes it. Once the paired appearance drops, do not be shocked when a third broadcast appears from a location Blueface has never streamed from before, a barbershop, a studio, a family member's living room. And that third broadcast is where the DNA test result is revealed on camera. The location choice is the giveaway. Unfamiliar rooms signal a controlled reveal. Familiar rooms signal a real argument. Track the room, not the words. Failure prediction for the opposition. The Nevaeh defense camp will not have a counter-broadcast ready within the same window because postpartum recovery does not schedule around a news cycle, and the man who owns the microphone will use that silence as his second win. Extended cascade on Arc 2. Once Carlisa posts anything longer than a story, a grid post, a caption over 90 words, a public tag of a family attorney, the wild card is running whether the principals have signed anything or not. Watch how the periphery reacts inside 24 hours of that post. The next window will bring one of two moves. Either Chrisean Rock posts publicly in support of Nevaeh, unlikely, given the earlier deleted story, but not impossible under a Rock versus Blueface pattern that is decades deep by internet time, or Rock posts publicly in support of the toddler being removed from the shared house, more likely, per her prior custody-adjacent statements documented on All Hip Hop. By the end of that same week, expect a Family Orbit account, probably one of the three named in the original scenario, to unfollow one of the principals on the main app. Unfollows in that orbit are not petty. They are votes cast in public. Failure prediction for the opposition. The loyalist camp will read Carlisa's post as a mother defending her son, not as a mother stepping between her son and a legal exposure, and that misread is the reason they will be caught flat-footed when the family attorney's name surfaces in a filing 11 days later. Extended cascade on Arc 3. Once X hits, an X here is the moment either of the two boys enters a school-age year where classmates search their names. The footage becomes a schoolyard fact, not a news event. By the time frame of 5 to 7 years from the broadcast date, expect the residue to appear in 3 separate documented forms: a family court exhibit in some future custody proceeding, a talk show montage in some future celebrity redemption cycle, and, most inevitably, a compilation edit on the same aggregator platforms that surfaced the footage this week. Once that compilation hits, the two boys are, without their consent, cast as extras in a genre they did not audition for. That is the residue. That is the part the news cycle will not carry, because carrying it would require an outlet to acknowledge its own downstream role in the archive. 3 arcs. 1 likely. 1 wild. 1 long. Set your calendar for 2 Fridays from now. If Blueface has not posted a controlled reframe by then, Arc 2 is running. If Nevaeh has not posted anything from inside that house by then, Arc 2 is confirmed. And Arc 3 is running whether either of them notices it or not. Subscribe if you want the follow-up the minute the DNA result posts. Bell on if you want to be in the room when Arc 2 turns from wild to confirmed. And the question from the top of this video, the one about how long this footage is going to age inside those 2 little boys' lives, you already know the answer. Type it in the comments. We are reading them.